The screams still echoed in Captain Hyunwoo Park's nightmares 3 years after the Centauri massacre. He had been piloting the colony transport New Seoul when the Velteran Death Fleet emerged from hyperspace like demons crawling out of hell itself. Their ships weren't just machines. They were living nightmares that pulsed with organic tissue fused to twisted metal. The largest Velteran vessel stretched 15 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull breathing like some cosmic beast. Tentacle-like appendages writhed along its sides, each one tipped with biocannons that could melt entire city blocks. The ship's surface rippled with veins of molten energy, feeding the creature-machine hybrid that had grown in the depths of space for centuries. Park had watched in horror as these biomechanical monsters descended upon New Centauri like vultures. The planet's defense grid fired everything they had: plasma torpedoes, quantum missiles, even experimental gravity bombs. Every shot simply disappeared into the Velteran ship's living hulls, absorbed and converted into more power for their terrible hunger. The invasion lasted exactly 47 minutes. Park had counted every second while evacuating civilians from the doomed colony. The Velteran harvesters landed like enormous insects, their drill proboscis boring deep into the planet's core. Within hours, New Centauri was nothing but a dried husk floating in space, its entire life force drained to feed the Dominion's endless appetite. Emperor Korthval ruled this empire of horror from his throne world deep in the galactic core. No living being had ever seen him and survived. But the story spoke of a creature that had evolved beyond flesh and metal, into something far more terrifying. His consciousness could reach across light years, possessing his bioships and directing their attacks with perfect coordination. The Velteran war doctrine was simple and brutal: consume everything. Their ships didn't just destroy planets, they devoured them completely. The biomechanical vessels would lock onto a world with massive feeding tubes draining its core energy, atmosphere, and even the life force of every creature on its surface. What remained wasn't even space debris, just empty vacuum where a thriving world once existed. Park had seen smaller Velteran scout ships in action during his escape from Centauri. These fighters were barely larger than shuttles, but each one was a perfect fusion of organic tissue and quantum technology. Their wings flapped like those of some prehistoric bat, while energy cannons grew from their bellies like poisonous stingers. They moved through space with impossible grace, hunting down fleeing refugees with the patience of predators who knew their prey had nowhere to run. The most terrifying aspect of Velteran technology was its ability to adapt and evolve during combat. Park had transmitted combat footage to Earth's military command, showing how the bioships changed their defensive configurations in real time. When faced with energy weapons, their hulls would grow reflective scales. Against kinetic projectiles, they sprouted layers of shock-absorbing tissue. No weapon had ever proven effective against them for more than a few minutes. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council lived in constant terror of attracting Velteran attention. Ambassador Vexilani of the Rigelian Republic would shake uncontrollably whenever military reports mentioned Dominion fleet movements. The Andromedian delegates had installed panic rooms beneath their embassy, stocked with enough supplies for months of hiding. The Council's emergency sessions always ended the same way, with desperate prayers that their worlds would remain beneath the Dominion's notice. They spoke in whispers about entire sectors that had simply vanished from star charts, consumed so thoroughly that even their gravity signatures disappeared from space. Park often wondered how many civilizations had faced the same choice as New Centauri. The Velterans always sent the same ultimatum before an invasion: total surrender and the sacrifice of 90% of the population to serve as biological fuel for their ships. Those who submitted bought themselves a few more years of existence as tribute worlds, constantly drained but never quite killed. The few species that chose to fight were erased so completely that only legends remained. The warrior clans of Zerion had fielded the largest military fleet in known history, over 10,000 warships armed with weapons that could crack moons. The Veltarans destroyed them in a single engagement that lasted less than 6 hours. Today, the Zerion system was nothing but empty space and scattered asteroid debris, yet somehow Park had survived. His transport's experimental stealth systems had hidden them long enough to escape Centauri's destruction. He carried with him the last recordings of the massacre, the final testimony of an entire world's death screams. Those files were now locked in Earth's deepest military vaults, studied by engineers and tacticians who hoped to find some weakness in the Veltaran war machine. But after 2,000 years of absolute dominance, the Dominion seemed truly invincible. Their bioships grew stronger with every conquest. Their emperor's power expanded with every world consumed. No force in the galaxy had ever made them retreat or even pause in their endless hunger for destruction. The asteroid mining facility looked ordinary from the outside, just another industrial complex harvesting rare metals from space rocks. But hidden beneath kilometers of reinforced tunnels, Admiral Minho Kim watched humanity's most ambitious project take its final form, the Soul's Vengeance, stretched over 2 kilometers through the hollowed-out asteroid, its sleek hull gleaming, under construction lights that had burned continuously for 15 years. Kim remembered the day this project began, 3 weeks after Captain Hyunwoo Park's harrowing testimony about the Centauri massacre. Earth's leaders had gathered in emergency session, watching the horrific footage of Veltaran bioships devouring an entire world. While other species had tried to match the Dominion's organic technology, humanity chose a radically different approach. Chief Engineer So-Young Lee had been just a junior scientist then, but her proposal revolutionized human military thinking. Instead of growing ships like the aliens did, humans would forge them from the hearts of dead stars. The Soul's Vengeance was built around a core of compressed neutronium, matter so dense that a teaspoon would weigh as much as a mountain. The ship's frame could withstand pressures that would crush planets. Lee walked beside Kim through the vessel's main corridor, her eyes bright with the fever of innovation. "Admiral, the final weapons tests exceeded all projections," she reported, pulling up holographic displays that showed impossible numbers. "Our rail cannons can accelerate tungsten rounds to 30% of light speed. Nothing in the galaxy has ever faced kinetic energy at these levels." The engineering bay hummed with activity as thousands of technicians performed final calibrations. The ship's power core was humanity's greatest achievement. 6 contained antimatter reactors that could generate more energy than most stars. Unlike the bioships that fed on planetary cores, the Soul's Vengeance carried its own portable apocalypse. Kim paused at an observation deck overlooking the main hangar bay. Hundreds of drone fighters hung from magnetic cradles, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. These weren't the organic creatures that other species flew. They were pure technology, faster and deadlier than anything the galaxy had seen. Their AI pilots could react in microseconds, adapting to enemy tactics faster than any biological brain. "Sir, Guardian is requesting final authorization for combat protocols," announced Lieutenant Commander Jae-Sung Yoon from the bridge. The ship's artificial intelligence had been learning and evolving throughout construction, studying every piece of combat data from the past 2 millennia. Guardian's quantum processors could simulate entire battles in seconds, predicting enemy movements with terrifying accuracy. The bridge itself was a marvel of human innovation. Instead of the organic, control interfaces used by other species, human engineers had created a seamless blend of holographic displays and neural links. Captain Sujin Han could control the entire ship through thought commands, her consciousness temporarily merging with Guardian's vast intelligence network. Kim watched Han run through combat simulations on the main display. The holographic Veltaran bioships looked exactly like the monsters from Park's nightmares, writhing masses of flesh and metal that pulsed with stolen life energy. But in these simulations, they died. Again and again, the Soul's Vengeance tore through enemy formations, with weapons that struck faster than light. "The aliens think they understand warfare," Han said, her fingers dancing across control surfaces that responded to her neural patterns. "They've fought the same way for thousands of years. Bioships against bioships. Organic weapons against organic armor. They've never faced pure kinetic energy delivered at relativistic speeds." The ship's manufacturing bay showcased humanity's industrial might. Automated systems could produce ammunition, spare parts, and even replacement drones. During combat, the Soul's Vengeance was designed to fight alone against impossible odds, sustaining itself through battles that might last months. Dr. Chang-Min Park, the the ship's chief scientist, demonstrated the vessel's most innovative feature: adaptive armor plating that could reconfigure itself in milliseconds. While bioships grow new defenses over time, our armor can change its molecular structure instantly, he explained, showing Kim how the hull could shift from reflective surfaces to energy-absorbing matrices. The crew quarters told their own story of human determination. Every officer and technician aboard had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. They came from every nation on Earth, united by the knowledge that humanity's survival depended on their success. In the mess hall, Korean engineers shared meals with Nigerian pilots and Russian weapons specialists, all bound together by their shared purpose. Kim made his way to the ship's most classified section, the quantum communication array that would allow real-time coordination with Earth's defense networks. If the Soul's Vengeance succeeded in its mission, this system would coordinate humanity's first interstellar military campaign. If it failed, the array would at least transmit tactical data that might help future defenders. The final system checks revealed the true scope of human innovation. The Soul's Vengeance incorporated technology that shouldn't have been possible for a species barely 3 centuries into space travel. Faster-than-light communications, matter compression techniques, and AI systems that bordered on true consciousness. Humanity had achieved in decades what other species had taken millennia to develop. "Admiral," Lee called from the engineering station, "all systems show green across the board. The ship is ready for deployment." Her voice carried a mixture of pride and terror. They had built something unprecedented, but none of them knew if it would be enough against an enemy that had never known defeat. Kim nodded, looking out at the vessel that represented humanity's greatest gamble. Tomorrow, the Soul's Vengeance would leave its hidden berth and face the most powerful empire in galactic history. The Velteron advance fleet materialized at the edge of the solar system like harbingers of death itself. War Marshal Gexthol's flagship Devourer Prime emerged from hyperspace first, a grotesque fusion of living tissue and twisted metal that stretched 3 kilometers from its pulsing bow to its writhing tail. Behind it, 12 smaller biocruisers took formation, their hulls breathing rhythmically as internal organs processed stellar radiation into raw power. On Luna Command's observation deck, Captain Ji-hoon Choi watched the alien fleet through enhanced telescopes that revealed every horrifying detail. The Veltaran ships moved like predatory fish through the vacuum, their biomechanical appendages tasting solar winds for signs of prey. Sensor readings showed massive energy buildups within their organic cores, the same signatures that had preceded the destruction of countless worlds. Gexthol's transmission crackled through every communication array in human space. The War Marshal's voice was a wet, bubbling sound that seemed to ooze through the speakers like liquid corruption. "Primitive mammals of the third planet," the message began, translated by computers that struggled to process the alien language. "Your species has been selected for consumption by the eternal Veltaran Dominion." Across Earth's colonies, emergency broadcasts carried the ultimatum to every human settlement. On Mars, colonists gathered in underground bunkers, watching holographic displays that showed the alien fleet's terrifying approach. The asteroid mining stations went silent as workers huddled around communication terminals, waiting for news that would determine their fate. The surrender terms were exactly what Captain Park had warned them about. Half of humanity's population would be transported to the bioships to serve as biological fuel, their life energy slowly drained to power the Dominion's endless expansion. The remaining humans would become tribute slaves, their worlds stripped of resources to feed the Veltaran war machine. "You have 6 of your primitive hours to comply," Gexthol's message continued, his words accompanied by images of planets being devoured. "Resistance will result in total consumption. Your species will join the billions who have fed our eternal hunger." In the Luna Command Center, communication officers turned to Captain Choi with expressions of barely controlled terror. They had all seen the classified footage from Centauri, knew exactly what total consumption meant. For 2,000 years, no species had ever refused this ultimatum and survived to tell the tale. Choi activated the emergency council session, connecting Earth's leadership through quantum communication links. President Kim Seo-jun appeared first, her face pale but determined. Defense Minister Yoon Tae-ho joined from the Pentagon's deep bunkers, while Admiral Min-ho Kim transmitted from his hidden position in the asteroid belt. Recommendations? President, Kim asked simply, though everyone knew there were only two choices: surrender or extinction. Ma'am, Admiral Kim's voice carried across the void, the Soul's vengeance is ready for deployment. We have one chance to show these monsters that humanity doesn't kneel. The debate lasted exactly 14 minutes. While other species might have argued for hours, humans had learned decisive action during their violent history. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would fight. Captain Choi returned to the communication array, his hands steady as he composed humanity's response. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations monitored human frequencies, expecting the usual tearful plea for mercy. The Rigelian Republic's intelligence networks prepared to document another species' final moments. Even the secretive Andromedian survivors tuned in from their hidden bases, anticipating humanity's inevitable submission. Instead, Choi's transmission blazed across the cosmos with defiant fury. War Marshal Gexthul of the Veltaran Dominion, his voice carried to every corner of known space. Humanity formally rejects your ultimatum. We do not kneel to tyrants. We do not feed our children to monsters, and we do not surrender to anyone. The words hit the galactic community like a shockwave. On Nexus Prime, alien ambassadors stared at their communication arrays in stunned disbelief. The Zephyrian trade guilds immediately began calculating the economic impact of humanity's extinction. Even the ancient crystalline collective, who rarely showed emotion, pulsed with surprised energy patterns. Gexthul's response was swift and brutal. The War Marshal's flagship turned toward Europa Station, humanity's largest research facility orbiting Jupiter. The bioship's feeding tentacles extended like the arms of some cosmic octopus, each one tipped with energy cannons that had cracked the crusts of worlds. Europa Station's commander, Colonel Young-Soo Han, ordered immediate evacuation as the Veltaran flagship approached. Transport ships launched from the station's docking bays, carrying 10,000 researchers and their families toward the dubious safety of Jupiter's other moons. But the bioship was faster than any human vessel. The Devourer Prime enveloped Europa Station like a predator swallowing prey. Its organic hull pulsed as internal digestive chambers processed the station's metal and energy. Within minutes, humanity's greatest scientific achievement was nothing but nutrients flowing through alien veins. The demonstration sent its intended message. This was the fate awaiting every human installation. But instead of breaking humanity's will, the destruction of Europa Station only hardened their resolve. Across the solar system, defense platforms powered up weapons that had never been tested in combat. Deep in the asteroid belt, proximity alarms screamed as something massive began moving through the scattered rocks. The Soul's vengeance had been waiting in perfect silence, its stealth systems masking energy signatures that dwarfed most planetary power grids. Now Admiral Kim gave the order that would change galactic history forever. All stations, this is Admiral Kim. His voice reached every human outpost simultaneously. Operation Nemesis is now active. Show them what happens when you threaten Earth. The battleship's antimatter reactors came online with a rising hum that seemed to make space itself vibrate. Its hull gleamed like polished silver as magnetic field. Generators created an aurora of energy around its massive frame. For the first time in 2 millennia, the Veltaran Dominion was about to face an enemy that refused to die quietly. The Soul's vengeance burst from the asteroid field like a silver comet, its hull blazing with energy as 6 antimatter reactors pushed the massive battleship to combat velocity. War Marshal Gexthul's biofleet had spread across the orbital plane between Mars and Jupiter, expecting to hunt down fleeing human transports. Instead, they found themselves facing something unprecedented in 2 millennia of conquest. Captain Soo Jin Han felt the neural interface sync with her consciousness as Guardian's artificial intelligence merged with her tactical awareness. Through the ship's sensors, she could perceive the battlefield in ways no biological mind had ever experienced. Every enemy vessel appeared as streams of data, energy signatures, structural weak points, and predicted movement patterns flowing through her enhanced perception. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported Weapons Officer Lee Min-jung from her station. Veltaran biocruiser, flesh render opening fire. The enemy ship was a nightmare of organic technology, a writhing mass of muscle and metal 3 kilometers long. Its surface pulsed with veins of bioluminescent energy as internal organs processed stellar radiation into weapon power. Dozens of feeding tentacles extended from its hull, each one tipped with bioplasma cannons that could liquefy planetary surfaces. The first barrage lit up space with streams of living fire. Bioplasma bolts, each one containing the concentrated life energy of 1,000 creatures, streaked toward the human battleship at near light speed. These weapons had never failed to penetrate enemy defenses. Organic matter could not resist the hunger of Veltaran biotechnology. But the Soul's vengeance wasn't organic. Captain Han triggered the evasion protocols, and the ship's magnetic drive systems responded with inhuman precision. Instead of the clumsy thruster burns used by other species, humanity's battleship rode controlled magnetic fields that could redirect its momentum instantly. The massive vessel twisted through space like a dancer, its 2-kilometer hull moving with impossible grace. The bioplasma bolts streaked past harmlessly, their organic targeting systems confused by the ship's erratic movement patterns. Guardian calculated thousands of trajectory possibilities per second, finding safe paths through walls of enemy fire that would have been impossible for any biological pilot to navigate. Target acquired, Han announced, her voice calm despite the chaos erupting around them. Guardian, designate primary threat. The artificial intelligence highlighted the flesh render's neural core, a pulsing brain-like organ buried deep within the bioship's chest cavity. Unlike the distributed nervous systems of Earth creatures, Veltaran vessels relied on centralized control nodes that coordinated their organic functions. Rail Cannon 1, fire, Han commanded. The magnetic accelerator sent a tungsten rod screaming across space at 30% of light speed. The projectile was just a meter long and barely 10 centimeters wide, but it carried the kinetic energy of a nuclear warhead. For 2,000 years, Veltaran bioarmor had absorbed every form of energy weapon ever fired at it. But nothing in the galaxy had ever faced pure kinetic force delivered at relativistic velocities. The tungsten rod punched through the flesh render's hull like a needle through tissue paper. The bioship's internal organs liquefied from the fear impact, its neural core destroyed before it could even register the attack. The massive vessel went dark, its bioluminescent veins fading as death spread through its organic systems. Across the Veltaran formation, War Marshal Gexthal's flagship pulsed with enraged energy patterns. The Devourer Prime had witnessed something impossible. One of his biocruisers had been destroyed by a single shot from these primitive mammals. His organic consciousness reached out through the fleet's neural network, coordinating a response that would erase this insult from existence. All 12 remaining Veltaran vessels converged on the human battleship, their bioplasma cannons charging to maximum power. The space between Mars and Jupiter erupted into a storm of living fire as the aliens unleashed concentrated death from every weapon system they possessed. But Guardian had already calculated their response patterns. The AI deployed the Soul's Vengeance's defensive systems, not energy shields like other species used, but clouds of metallic chaff that disrupted the bioplasma's organic targeting. Each bolt of alien fire found itself chasing false signatures, while the real battleship danced between the attacks. Deploy drone swarm, Han ordered, her neural link allowing her to control hundreds of fighters simultaneously. The battleship's launch bays opened like the mouth of some technological beast, releasing waves of autonomous combat drones. Each fighter was barely larger than a human, but they moved through space with mechanical precision that made organic pilots look clumsy. Their AI minds shared tactical data instantly, coordinating attacks that exploited every weakness in Veltaran biotechnology. The drones swarmed over the alien bioships like metallic insects, their particle beam weapons slicing through organic armor with surgical precision. Unlike the massive energy expenditures favored by other species, human weapons focused on efficiency, small, precise cuts that severed critical systems rather than overwhelming brute force. Gexthal watched his fleet's formation dissolve as human tactics proved impossible to counter. His bioships had evolved over millennia to fight other organic vessels, but these mechanical demons attacked with cold mathematical precision that biological minds couldn't match. Admiral Kim, Han's voice reached the command center through quantum communication. The enemy is adapting faster than projected. We need to end this quickly. Admiral Min Ho Kim studied the tactical display showing the Soul's Vengeance surrounded by 9 remaining Veltaran vessels. The human battleship had taken damage, its hull scarred by bioplasma that had found its mark, but it still fought with deadly efficiency. Captain Han, Kim's voice carried the weight of command. Activate Omega Protocol, ram the flagship. The order sent shockwaves through the bridge crew. Omega Protocol was humanity's final gambit, a desperate kamikaze attack that would sacrifice the Soul's Vengeance to destroy the enemy command ship. But facing impossible odds, it was their only chance to break Veltaran morale. All hands, brace for impact, Han announced as she aligned the battleship's reinforced prow with the Devourer Prime's massive bulk. The antimatter reactors overloaded in controlled sequence, channeling impossible energies into the magnetic drive systems. The Soul's Vengeance accelerated toward Gexthal's flagship, like a silver spear thrown by the gods themselves, its hull glowing white-hot from the forces tearing through its structure. The collision lit up the solar system brighter than the sun. The news traveled faster than light itself through the galaxy's quantum communication networks. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Zephyrian slave workers stopped their excavation duties to stare at holographic displays showing impossible footage. A human battleship ramming through the Devourer Prime, like a silver blade through rotten flesh. The Veltaran flagship, terror of 1,000 worlds, had been destroyed by creatures the Dominion considered barely more advanced than insects. Commander Tae-hyun Park stood in the rebuilt Luna Command Center, watching as encrypted messages flooded humanity's communication arrays. The young officer had been Admiral Kim's tactical advisor during the Soul's Vengeance project, and now carried the weight of humanity's first interstellar military command. Each incoming transmission represented species that had hidden in fear for centuries, now daring to hope for freedom. The first breakthrough came from the Rigelian underground resistance. Their leader, a crystalline being called Shardsinger Velnathi, transmitted coordinates to 17 hidden Veltaran breeding facilities scattered across the outer rim. These biofoundries were where the Dominion grew their massive warships, feeding them with the life essence of conquered worlds until they reached maturity. Commander Park, the alien's translated message crackled through quantum static. Our scouts have monitored these facilities for 300 years, waiting for someone strong enough to strike them. Your species has given us that hope. Park studied the intelligence data with growing excitement. The breeding facilities were lightly defended, protected by only a handful of biocruisers. If humanity could destroy them, the Veltaran Empire would lose its ability to replace the massive warships that formed the backbone of their military power. On Earth's orbital shipyards, construction proceeded at a frantic pace. The Soul's Vengeance had proven that human technology could match Veltaran bioships, but one battleship wasn't enough to liberate an entire galaxy. Chief Engineer So-Young Lee had survived the final battle by evacuating to an escape pod moments before the collision. Now she supervised the construction of an entire battle fleet based on the original design. Captain Ye-Jin Kang watched her ship take shape in the massive construction bay orbiting Earth's moon. The Busan's Fury was 15% larger than its predecessor, incorporating armor improvements learned from studying Veltaran bioplasma burns on the original hull fragments. Its rail cannon systems could fire continuously for hours, while advanced AI coordination would allow multiple battleships to function as a single tactical unit. In a parallel construction facility, Lieutenant Commander In-Soo Moon oversaw the final assembly of the Inchen's Pride. His ship featured experimental stealth technology that could mask its energy signature even from Veltaran biosensors. The plan was for the Inchen's Pride to serve as a scout and infiltration vessel, gathering intelligence deep behind enemy, lines while the heavier battleships engaged in direct combat. The most surprising alliance came from the survivors of the Andromedian Republic. For over a century, the galaxy had believed this ancient civilization completely extinct, devoured by Veltaran harvesters during the Great Expansion. But Admiral Zex Mira's transmission revealed the truth. 300 Andromedian warships had escaped into the galactic void, building hidden bases in rogue planets that drifted between star systems. Humans of Earth. The Andromedian Admiral's message was accompanied by tactical displays showing sleek vessels emerging from asteroid camouflage. We pledge our remaining fleet to your cause. Our weapons may be older than your civilization, but our hatred for the Dominion burns eternal. The Andromedian ships were marvels of energy manipulation technology. Unlike human kinetic weapons or Veltaran bioplasma, they wielded pure gravitational force, creating artificial black holes that could crush bioships from the inside out. Combined with human rail cannons and tactical coordination, this alliance represented the most powerful military force assembled in galactic history. Park coordinated the resistance from his new command center buried deep beneath Luna's surface. Holographic displays showed rebellion spreading across dozens of star systems as enslaved species rose against their Veltaran overseers. The Zerion warrior clans, thought extinct for millennia, emerged from hidden bunkers with weapons they had been forging in secret for 1,000 years. Even the peaceful trading guilds began smuggling military supplies to resistance cells. The first major engagement came at the Veltaran breeding facility in the Vega system. 3 human battleships, supported by Rigelian scout vessels and Andromedian gravity cruisers, struck the biofoundry before its defenders could coordinate a response. The Busan's Fury led the attack, its rail cannons systematically destroying the massive organic wombs where infant bioships grew in artificial amniotic fluid. Captain Kang watched through her ship's sensors as the facility died in brilliant explosions of green biofluid. Each destroyed breeding chamber represented years of Veltaran growth potential eliminated forever. For the first time in 2 millennia, the Dominion's expansion had been not just stopped, but reversed. The psychological impact of humanity's victories spread beyond military calculations. On the Dominion's tribute worlds, populations that had accepted slavery for generations began to whisper about rebellion. Veltaran governors found their authority challenged by local uprisings that drew inspiration from human defiance. Emperor Korthval himself finally took notice of these primitive mammals when his war marshal Gexthol's death screams reached across the galactic core. The ancient ruler had not personally intervened in a military campaign for over 1,000 years, but humanity's continued existence represented an intolerable challenge to Veltaran supremacy. Deep in the Sol system, humanity prepared for the storm they knew was coming. The first phase of rebellion had succeeded beyond all expectations, but the Dominion's full might had yet to be unleashed. When it came, every human world would face the concentrated fury of an empire that had never before tasted defeat. But across the galaxy, hope burned brighter than the stars themselves. Species that had forgotten the meaning of freedom now looked toward Earth as the beacon of their liberation. The impossible had already happened once. A young species had proven that even the mightiest tyrants could bleed. Now the real war was about to begin. The end